You want to break out of the standard oval track plan with a town in the middle? The way to do that is to think small. We're going to talk about two principles of layout design that may seem a bit odd at first, but when I forced myself to do these things, my layout design and enjoyment skyrocketed. Hey everybody, my name's Jimmy. I am drinking some Green Mountain coffee today, and this is Coffee and Trains.
This video is brought to you by Model Railroad Academy. Model Railroad Academy is your online resource for model railroad instructions, ideas, and information, with loads of tutorials and articles for model railroaders of every skill level. I've recently been going through their catalog and watching some of their older videos, including this one from Don Kassler and the M&K division of the B&O. It's been really cool to watch and see all the old techniques he used. Plus, you can find tutorials on everything from bench work to electronics to scenery, all sorts of things there. The first 1,000 people to sign up at the link in the description below will get a full year of premium membership to Model Railroad Academy for $1.49. Offer is valid for new members only.
If you want to tell me what kind of coffee you are drinking and be featured just like these guys right here, you can do that in the comments below, and who knows, you might see your name pop up on an episode of Coffee and Trains. Let's get to it. Cheers, guys. Before we get into this discussion, I just want to say that anything that I say must also take into consideration rule number 1 of model railroading, which is, it's your railroad, have fun. Rule 1 is the rule you cannot break in model railroading. So if what I'm talking about violates that rule for you, then don't listen to me, because this isn't for everyone. Now, thinking small doesn't mean that you're looking to build a smaller layout. It's about focusing on a smaller area to model. Sometimes we want to represent a 100-mile stretch of main line in 10 feet, when in reality, we are often modeling the first and last mile of a rail car's journey. So why not make our entire model about that? There are entire industrial areas that have a ton of operating potential and switching fun without feeling like the need to put every single little thing on the railroad. A lot of times, this can even be a single industry. I'm going to show you guys several examples of this in real life.
So we're going to take a look at 3 different areas that have a lot of interest for doing model railroading and things like that that you can use to base some of your designs off of that really don't have, they don't take up a ton of space. They're not modeling huge stretches of main line. So let's start off with around where I live, which is Charlotte, North Carolina. And we're going to take a look down here, and we're actually going to go, there's a lot of rail lines that come through here because you have Norfolk Southern and CSX that have a junction here, and there's a couple big Norfolk Southern yards, and we're actually going to go down to here south of the city, which is not where you see everything, but you can already see these yellow lines. This is OpenStreetMap, by the way, and I have the transport map layer on, and you can see right here we have a ton of different things. This is basically a big industrial area, and you have over here, like you have a Siemens plant, I do know that, but you've got a lot right here in a very small space, and if you look at it, it kind of looks like what someone would do with a model railroad, if I'm being honest. So what it is basically it comes over here, there's a quarry right here, there's a bunch of different industries, and then there's also this big spur that goes out here towards the Catawba River and Lake Wylie. And what you have here is you also have, like, I believe this is the Siemens plant. I'm not 100% sure, but there's a lot of different modeling that you can do around here. And it's just a really, really good area. I'm going to pull it up on Google Maps. And if we look at it on Google Maps, first of all, it's right at the state line. So there's I'm not sure if that'd be anything interesting to model, but if we look right here, we can see the quarry right here, and there's a lot of industry going on there, a lot of hoppers being loaded, as you can see, just a lot of stuff you can do right there. And we can see it connects, I believe this is I can't remember which Norfolk Southern line this is. Metals, recycling, things like that. And this is all off of this single spur. And you can see that there's a lot. And then the spur comes back. There's another one. And then the spur comes back into the main line, which is right here. And then if we go over and we cross the interstate, this is I-77, and it crosses right here. Pretty sharp turn, actually, for a actual railroad here. And you can see we just have a lot of operational interest. We have a crossover right there. We have moving. This looks basically, yeah, that's a Y right there. So you have some wiring interest if you're interested in that. We've got a lot of different industries. I can't tell by their name, but you can see that there are a lot of box cars here, I believe. So there's a lot of things that you can do here, and it has some interest. We have some crossings over here to some various other industries. It looks like we have some just in general industrial solutions type things. But we can follow this all the way around. We got a passing siding right there. And I think, yeah, it kind of fades off. I think that's some unused track right there. But over here, for the most part, you've got a lot of interest. You can see that it goes right around here, has a very interesting crossing that you could set up. Another junction, so just a lot of things that you could do. You also have a big yard right here. You've got a lot of different things that you can do. So that's not a huge amount of space to really think about it. So that's just that little bitty area right there has all that operational potential. So that's another thing to think of. Now let's look at a smaller one. Let's look at a slightly different option. We're going to go over here to Wilmington. And let me switch back over to OpenStreetMap so we can take a look at it first with just the pure transit map. And what we have here is we have the port. And this is where everything comes in to the port city. And you've got a couple different options here. You got this one, which is where it comes across. There's a railroad bridge up here. So you have where you could model basically, like if you were to compress this a little bit, you could model it coming right around through the downtown area, which is a very historic downtown Wilmington. Come through here and you can go into all of this right here. You got, this looks like where oil and petroleum come in. That's what that looks like, in natural gas. And then you just have all sorts of other little things. Let's look at it on the actual map. So the railroad bridge is right here. And look, it's a drawbridge. So that adds some additional interest right there. So we can see, and it's something that definitely would be a challenge for people to try. And you can see, yeah, we got oil and that's petroleum, Colonial. That's a big pipeline here on the East Coast. So you would have all this. You can see a lot of tank cars down there, but also you can go a little further and we have a rail yard. Lots of petroleum and covered hoppers and tank cars, all that kind of stuff. You can see we got a lot of big commodities, bulk commodity movement, those things like that. And it just keeps going. Like you have, here's the intermodal facility. So that's something you can add. Just a lot of different things. Now, the next thing that I'm going to show you is we're going to stay on the East Coast and we're going to go down to Georgia. And I've actually featured this particular industry before, but we're going to be looking at, if I can get to it, here it is. In Brunswick, Georgia, we have a paper mill. And here it is right here. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to it in OpenStreetMap. And we're going to go down to, let's scroll all the way down. It's a little bit easier to follow on OpenStreetMap. Oh, we're into Florida. Let's go back. And so you can see everything just kind of going wham, like coming down there. 2 rail lines, everything. So there's a lot of traffic that clearly comes into here. So when we zoom in, we can see here is the paper mill. So this is the entire paper mill. And there's a lot of trackage just for a single paper mill. And that's because paper mills need a lot of different supplies. But there is a ton of switching opportunities. And you can see the way that it's designed, it would be pretty easy to do some switching. But you can see there's like several like double sidings, triple sidings, all that kind of stuff. And then when we go a little bit further up here, we have a yard, a pretty big, a pretty substantial yard. And it looks like we have some, actually technically it looks like 2. This one's a smaller one, but this looks like 2 rail lines that connect. We got a Y. We got a lot of different things going on here, but basically if you were to take just this area right here and model it, you could have a fun model railroad for operations. You could do a ton of different stuff. Let's look at this on Google Maps and let's take a look. See, we'll start off with the yard. Yeah, that's a pretty substantial yard. I don't see a name popping up. Typically if you zoom in on them and it's like a Norfolk Southern CSX Union Pacific yard, the name will pop up because it's going to have offices, but this looks more like a storage yard and a interchange yard, so there's not much that's going to go in there. But you can see also there's another few extra tracks right here. It looks like they have some bulk commodities. It looks like we have tank cars and looks like either gravel or something else. Can't quite tell from this. And then there's a little interchange track right here that looks like a couple of box cars are sitting on. Yep, CSX and a TTX box car, so rail box. And when we get down to here, we can see that there are quite a few different car types. You have wood pulp hoppers. You can see all the wood pulp that's coming in. It's a lot of wood pulp. You have your tanker cars for all your different chemicals. You're going to have things like acid tankers, regular tankers, all that kind of stuff. You got box cars for the more sensitive paper products and things like that that can't like be stored on a flat car or anything like that. Let me just go down a little bit further, but you can see there's a lot of different options for a lot of different things. Looks like we have several areas for cars to come in. Looks like they bring tank cars right into here. Or that actually might be the distribution, because I see a truck right here as well. So they may be rolling the box cars to get the bigger things, and then the trucks also load here. So who knows? But this just shows you how much operations you can get in this small space.
The next part of thinking small is a bigger emphasis on the negative space in your railroad. Negative space is the in-between spaces where you model literally nothing but scenery. I have 4 modules on my railroad that are just scenery for a train to run through for this reason. A lot of times I see railroads that have little or no scenic break between areas of interest. A modeler may do this due to limited space or the desire to maximize their model, but when you get small and focus down on a specific area, you're able to incorporate more of that negative space, which also just gives you a more realistic feel to your layout. So you're still focusing on smaller areas, but you can make bigger negative spaces that represent the area around those models. Let's go back to Charlotte, for example.
Let's really zoom in here and see what negative spaces we can add. So first of all, we have the rail line looping right around here. And what I would do is I would probably make some background buildings or some things that the line goes through, but then you also have, like, look at that. There's a nice little bridge right there, and you would never expect to see something like that in a little industrial area in the heart of a major city. So that is a nice little bridge that you could model going over Sugar Creek in Charlotte, right here next to this industrial area and everything. So there is a cool little bridge that you can model. Let's keep going. So we're going to follow this line. And then you have this. This is something that I think is very interesting to model because A, you are right at the state line. I think the state line, yeah, it's literally right there. So you can have some extra signage of like, welcome to North Carolina, all this kind of stuff. And you have just enough of a scenic break to where you could really have fun modeling some interstate highway. That's a pretty nice looking bridge too, a rail bridge. So that's something else that you could model. That's another thing. So let's keep going though. We got this nice little wooded area. That's a good negative space right there. Just some simple woods. So like if you're doing the Y, even if you compress it, fill the whole area with trees and you'll be good to go. So let's keep on going. Let's take off to the spur because I know there's some good ones here. Like if we look right here, let's rotate around it. That is a good wooded track right there. So that's a nice little spot. So, and if you're not trying to compress as much, you're able to get a little bit of that and add little things like that. So let's keep on looking. There's actually a lot right here. I think, yeah, we got like a lot of wooded space in between these buildings and the track itself. So you have a lot of wooded areas you could do. You can have things like this nice little crossing. I know for a fact that if we were to go into this right here, you know, just having little things like this, having little puddles and things like that, and crossings and seeing like that, and just adding all of these little things right here. Buildings that serve no purpose other than to have scenery. Like those type of things are things that you can add that are going to add interest to your layout, but you're also, because you're doing them, you're choosing to model a smaller area. There's another crossing over here on South Tryon Street. It's actually a pretty big crossing, So you could do some stuff right here. You've got some buildings. I think there's a couple buildings around here. I don't know. Yeah, there's a few fast food restaurants you could compress in, but yeah, this would be a cool little spot to model, and you can see it goes right back into the woods, so you could have the train pop out, add a little bit of mystery to it. These are the things that you can do. These are the things you can do when you really zoom in on a space and you model it. You can get a lot of interest. You don't have to model these huge expansive areas to have an interesting model railroad. I've seen a lot of model railroads that model a very small space like this that are extremely interesting. And this is just something to think about and check out. But yeah, negative space is something that can really add a lot to your model railroad just by modeling the scenery around things rather than cramming as much as you can into it.
Again, if you're having fun with your model railroad as it is, don't stop. That is the most important thing. But if you're looking for more and are stuck in the analysis paralysis stage of model railroading, think a bit smaller and a bit more local, and you may just build your perfect model railroad. Thank you all so much for watching. Until next time, I'm Jimmy from the DIY and Digital. Stay safe, be kind, drink some coffee, and happy railroading.